Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the St. Louis Rams at the Washington Redskins in their Week 2 matchup in the 2015 NFL season. Happens September 20th, 2015. We're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. But let's start in the first quarter. With about 7 minutes still left in the first, Matt Jones, the rookie from Florida, ran it 39 yards for the touchdown. Hopkins added the extra point, and it was 7-0 Washington over St. Louis. Then with less than a minute left in the first, Hopkins hit a 46-yard field goal, and that made it 10-0 Redskins over the Rams. So then in the second quarter, with about 3 minutes left before halftime, Kirk Cousins hit Pierre Garçon for a 4-yard touchdown, and that made it 17-0 after the extra point by Hopkins, as the Redskins were in control going into the locker rooms at halftime. But then in the third, St. Louis finally got on the scoreboard with a field goal by Greg Zerline, a 52-yarder that made it 17-3 as they cut the Redskins' lead to 14. And that was with about 9.5 minutes left in the third. And about a minute and a half later, with about 7 minutes left still in the third, Foles hit Kenny Britt for a 40-yard touchdown. And with the extra point, it was a 7-point game with the score Washington 17, St. Louis 10. So they were within striking distance heading into the fourth. But in the fourth quarter, the Redskins defense would shut down the Rams, and with about 2.5 minutes left to play, Matt Jones would put the explanation point on this game with a 3-yard touchdown run, and the extra point made it 24-10 as the Redskins win this one by 2 touchdowns. So let's look at the stats, and Matt Jones had a huge game for the Redskins. 19 carries for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He also had 3 receptions for 23 receiving yards. That gives him a total of 146 yards in this game. Alfred Morris also ran the ball 18 times for 59 yards. And Kirk Cousins had 23 of 27 attempts completed for 203 yards. And he had a touchdown and 0 interceptions. Nick Foles just 17 for 32 with 150 passing yards and 1 touchdown. He did not throw an interception. Tavon Austin was the leading rusher for the Rams with 4 carries for 40 yards. And Trey Mason had just 7 carries for 26 yards. The leading receiver in the game was the tight end from Washington, Jordan Reed. He had 6 receptions for 82 yards. Grant had 3 receptions for 45 yards. And Pierre Garçon had 6 receptions for 23 yards, including a touchdown. Morris had 2 receptions for 13 yards to go along with his 59 rushing yards to put him at 72 total yards in the game. And for the Rams, Cook had 5 receptions for 47 yards. Kenny Britt, 2 receptions for 44 yards, including a touchdown. And Cunningham had 4 receptions for 27 yards. He did rush the ball once for 0 yards. And then we look at the kickers. Hopkins, 1 for 1 for the field goals, a 46-yarder, and 3 for 3 on the extra points. And Zerline hit that 52-yard field goal, and he also had an extra point in the game. And on defense, Alec Ogletree had 8 tackles to be the game's leading tackler over on the St. Louis side. And for the Rams, they ended up with a forced fumble by Robert Quinn, and Long had a sack, Donald had a half a sack, and Fairley had a half a sack as well. And for the Redskins, Paella had a sack, and Kerrigan forced a fumble. Robinson was their leading tackler with 5 tackles. We look inside the team stats, and for first downs, the Redskins had 19 first downs versus just 11 first downs for the Rams. And on third downs, the Rams converted just 2 of 12 third downs for a 16% completion percentage, or conversion percentage rather. It's pretty abysmal. But for the Redskins, they converted 50%, converting 8 of 16 third downs. Of course, the Rams actually went for it once on 4th down. They did not convert that 4th down. And so total net yards, the Redskins had 373, and the Rams 213. rushing yards. Washington had 182 net rushing yards, just 67 for St. Louis. So they had 3 times as much, nearly, yards on the ground for Washington in this game. And net passing yards, 191 for the Redskins. Cousins was sacked twice for a total of 12 yards lost. And for the Rams, 146 net passing yards. Foles was sacked once for a loss of 4. When we look at the red zone, and the Rams did not make any trips to the red zone in this game. Not once did they get inside the 20, as the Redskins defense is pretty dominant in this game. And the Redskins in the red zone were 100%, 2 for 2. In the time of possession, the Redskins dominated with 37 minutes and 44 seconds of possession time versus just 22 minutes and 16 seconds for the Rams. So in this game, the Redskins just ran all over the Rams. They looked pretty solid. Their defense played really tight. They were able to shut down the St. Louis offense. The Rams offense was suspect as it was. They did manage to put up 34 points, overall between the offense and defense and special teams, against the Seahawks. But the special teams didn't necessarily show up big in this game, as they, you can't always count on someone running back a kick or a punt. They actually didn't even have any punt returns in this game, as they were just getting beat up by the Redskins as they were running the ball all over them. Like I said, Matt Jones had a huge game. Morris had, a good contribution as well, even though he didn't have a lot of yards. But the two of those, guys coming out of the backfield, running the ball, were having a lot of success, and they were eating up the clock, and they kept moving the ball, as the Redskins just seemed to always have the ball. They always seemed like they were on offense. Cousins didn't have a lot of yards, but he did have a high completion percentage, and he did protect the ball, which the balance of the offense, being that they were running the ball so much, helped them out quite a bit, as they actually ran the ball more than they actually threw the ball, as they ran it 37 times versus 27 passes. And that's a recipe for success with the team that they have. They managed the game pretty well. They said their defense is actually pretty underrated. They're not that bad on defense. As they showed in this game, they were able to handle St. Louis. St. Louis, of course, though, doesn't really have, a strong running game. Foles, put up pretty good numbers against the Seahawks. Of course, that was without, them being at full strength, as it were. And against the Redskins, they were able to, get after Foles, get in his face, and force him to, make throws that not necessarily, for interceptions, but his completion percentage was right there, just at 50, just above 50, like 52. So 17 for 32, 150 yards. That's being shut down. So Washington did a pretty good job in this game. Like I said, Matt Jones looked phenomenal, as he was just making all kinds of cuts and making the Rams look silly. And I tell you, this is a good Rams defense. For the Redskins to do this is pretty impressive. Of course, the Redskins have had a lot of success running the ball the last few seasons, even with the bad record that they've had over the last couple of years. They've always ran the ball well, especially with Alfred Morris. And so now with the addition of Matt Jones, the rookie from Florida, the Gator, then you should see more of this kind of balance in their offense. And if they continue to have success on the ground with the defense that they have and the way things are shaping out in the East, I know it's just week 2, but it's wide open in the East. As you got the Cowboys sitting up there 2-0, but now they have no Romo, no Bryant. The Redskins at 1-1 are looking a lot better than their chances are looking a lot better. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but the Redskins have a chance. That's what I was saying after watching all the games. So I was like, wow, as crazy as it sounds, the Redskins actually have just as good a chance of winning the East as anybody, because no one in the East has really solidified themselves as looking like the clear front runner. And like I said, if they can continue to run the ball the way that they were doing today, Washington could end up having a good season. Like I said, it's just week 2, though, not to get ahead of ourselves here. And the Rams, we knew their defense was good, but their offense was a big question mark. And again, it's just week 2, and this is a road game for them, so they seem to play a lot better at home as it is. They have trouble traveling, and a lot of that has to do with the lack of a running game. So it'll be interesting to see when Gurley comes back, what he can get going on the ground for them. But as for this game, Washington at 1-1 comes out looking really strong, and St. Louis also 1-1 comes out looking actually a little bit exposed. But we'll see how it shapes up next week. Let me know what you think, though, in the comment section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend, and enjoy all the sports.